You're listening to a Rock Candy podcast.
Hi, my name is Stephen Long, and I host a show here on Rock Candy called Sacred Tension. It's about the spiritual discipline of asking questions. If you find yourself uncomfortable in your faith, or if you find yourself caught between modern science and ancient religion, or if you're curious about the journeys of others who are sorting out faith and doubt, Sacred Tension is a place where nothing is off limits. You will find conversations with pastors, cult experts, spiritual leaders, and skeptics, all discussing the ways we navigate the faiths we were given. Find Sacred Tension right here on Rock Candy and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Eleventyseven podcast.
What's up, unicorns? Welcome to this week's episode of Eleventyseven. I hope that your week has gone amazingly. I hope everything is coming up Millhouse for you and yours. I hope that you're drinking enough water, that you're going for walks, okay? That you're holding hands with friends and lovelies. I hope you are doing all manner of things that make your insides feel warm and squishy, especially because it's getting so cold. So cold outside. Hey, it has been a hot minute since we did an Eleventyseven podcast because we were hard at work here in the Rock Candy Studios in lovely Asheville, North Carolina, working on our new album, Gloom and Bloom, which is out now on all streaming platforms. This last month has been absolutely amazing. We did our one and only show of the year in Greenville, South Carolina. So many of you made our album release party one of the most special nights that we'll ever have. We'll never forget it. There was more unicorn magic represented on that one night than there has ever been in a lifetime devoted to witchcraft and wizardry. Okay, so I just have a couple of things to get into before we do today's show. As I mentioned earlier, we do have a brand new album. That is the whole point of today's podcast, actually, to do a little bit of album commentary and answer some of the questions that you guys have been asking about it. I just want to send some sparkles and cryptocurrency to everyone who has already downloaded it, who is starting to add those songs to your playlists. Thank you. Thank you so much for allowing our music to be a part of your life in that way. We're incredibly, incredibly grateful for you and for the time that you decide to spend with our art. Also, kind of a cool thing that happened over the last week, we were under the impression that we had long since sold out of all of the vinyl pressings for our album Rad Science. I feel like I probably get 2 to 3 emails a week about people asking if they can get that vinyl anymore, and I keep telling them no and that we're probably never going to press it again. Well, it just so happens that an extra 30 copies of that album ended up showing up during our studio clean out. We have no idea how they got there or what happened or why they were missing, but there are a few more copies of Rad Science on limited edition pink vinyl that exist in the universe right now, and you can find them over at the Rock Candy Recordings online store. Also, I have to give a shout out to everybody that is a part of the Eleventyseven Discord, which you can get to by going to our website, 11tysevenisalive.com. We've got a little icon here that you can click on if you want to be a part of that community. So many cool and fun and interesting people high-fiving each other, sharing everything from quirky, beautiful musings about the world to video games that they're playing to songs that they're super into right now. It is just an incredibly friendly and fun place, and I am inspired by the love that everyone there has for each other and for technology. Today on Eleventyseven, we are doing a crossover album commentary episode with our good friends from Magnified Pod, John and Andrew. If you have not checked out their podcast, it's one of my absolute favorites. Head over to Magnified Pod, wherever you're listening to podcasts. Go ahead and give them a like or a love or a subscribe. They save all of our album commentary episodes from just sounding like we're sitting here talking about ourselves for 2-3 hours. They are both our personal Lord and Saviors of social interaction, and I really, really appreciate them. Big love to you guys. This episode is going to be one of a two-parter because, as per usual, whenever we hang out with John and Andrew, we just have too much fun, and we get a little bit long-winded, and we start having way too much fun together. So on this episode, we're going to give a little bit of an overview. I'm going to answer some of the questions that everyone had on the Eleventyseven Facebook group, and then we're going to go through the first 5 tracks of the album. Gloom. And then next week, we'll put out the second half of the episode. Because let's be honest, 3 hours of content is just way, way too much. I don't know anybody that has 3 hours of their life to dedicate to listening to us ramble about our creative process. If you are new to this whole 11D-verse, thank you for deciding to take a chance on us and for spending some time with us today. To all of our OG unicorns, I just want to say thank you so much for making our lives so fun and rich, and for putting out music so fun, and releasing songs and speaking our truth feel like it doesn't fall on deaf ears. You guys have no idea how much that means to us. Anyway, I hope you have a blast with today's episode. I know I did. And so without further ado, I'm going to go hang out with John and Andrew for a little bit.
I guess we'll do a separate, we'll each do our own separate intros.
Yeah. You guys can do whatever intro that you want to do, and then I'll do mine offline as a bookend.
Okay.
If that makes it easier. So we're not like, hi, welcome to my podcast. Oh, God damn it. Welcome to my podcast.
Yeah. I know we've done this 4 times now, but we're a little rusty.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. I'll defer to you, Andrew. You guide this ship.
All right. Hadn't done one of these in a minute, but get back on that bike.
And that unicorn.
That's right. John, we are welcoming back our first episode in a long time. We're inviting back, I don't know, maybe 4th, 5th time on the pod.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
One of our favorite people, one of our favorite guests, Matt Langston of the 11D Life podcast. And what we're talking about today, this brand new 11-7 record, Gloom and Bloom. Matt, welcome back to Magnified Pod. We're so happy to see you, our dude.
To put it quite frankly, I'm a little put out.
Sorry.
At the time we've spent apart, gentlemen.
Indeed.
Hey, if you're willing to put out, then, just say the word.
I feel a little bit like putting out for MagPod.
We kind of bookended this year, right? Because we started off with some fantasy league pods. Ooh. Now we're nearing the end of the year, closing out talking Gloom and Bloom. I mean, what a beautiful bookend to this year of our Lord 2023.
The year of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
That's right.
I was talking to Jessica earlier today, and she was like, "Oh, is that the same podcast that you were on when you guys did the fantasy league stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I remember I probably was not as forthcoming with Scott about how sick I was, in his house, touching all his stuff, rubbing my bare ass on his kitchen counters. It was a lot. But I remember having the time of my life when we got to hang out for the fantasy league thing. But I also kind of feel like I was trying to stay awake for a lot of it, and that's not on you guys. That's just whatever was happening with me at the time.
Well, you did great. I thought we had fun.
Yes.
As we will tonight.
Yes. And to kind of toast this moment, I went to my local liquor store and I felt like I wanted to get something that was appropriate for this occasion. And John, you'll certainly be familiar with this. I felt like I needed to pick up a 4-pack of the Pipeworks Ninja versus Unicorn.
Well done.
Oh my God.
Well done.
So, I felt like if there's any time to drink a unicorn themed beer, it's with Matt. So
perfect.
Oh my God. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, brother. There you go.
Yeah, I have Scotch, which Scotland seems like a land where unicorns would run free in the green rolling hills.
That's true.
That's my tie-in.
And speaking of Scott, when I was sending out this this link to the Zoom tonight, how Google likes to add suggestions about Scott.
You don't want to put Scott on here?
Yeah,
Scott.
Throw your in-laws in here. That's great.
Throw Scott on this. I'm
should we put Scott in?
I mean, should we invite Scott?
Just add him in.
Yeah, why not?
Why would we not just invite him to be a part of the conversation and all pretend like we talked about this last week, Scott? What the hell?
Okay.
Just gaslight the shit out of him.
Yeah, keep me down. I'd be too polite to say otherwise.
With those propane accessories.
That's right.
Nice.
But we are very excited about Gloom and Bloom, the new record. Excited to talk through it tonight. And
wait, you mean this one? This record right here?
That's the one,
Whoa.
baby.
This beautiful vinyl record that has this outstanding.
Resplendent, yes.
Yeah, resplendent is the word I would use.
You were just holding it like you were staring into the unicorn's butthole, and you're like, wow.
Yes. Beautiful.
Oh, nice.
It's got like it's got the gloom of the sort of volcanic rocks the unicorn is emerging from, and then the bloom of the rainbow in the sky above it.
Yes.
Blooming on the cover, gloom on the back with the skeleton of a unicorn.
It's got beautiful colored vinyl. So
Yeah,
what
man.
I'm saying, people, is get
Pick it up.
these brand new 10 bangers on vinyl.
That's right.
Look, even if you're not into the band, but you're into unicorns, it's a pretty cool thing to just, hang up over your toddler's crib
It is.
and hope for the best.
Well, if we find out, if someone says, "Yeah, I'm not really into the band," then they are dead to me.
Yeah.
So
Sorry. When we were talking Fantasy League with you all last time, we talked about neon dolphins, and this time, I just feel like it's our Lisa Frank dreams come together.
I know.
Looking at this artwork. So
this is very Lisa Frank adjacent.
love it.
If Lisa Frank went through like a metal phase or something.
Hell yeah. She did.
Do you guys know about the Lisa Frank? Apparently, Lisa Frank is responsible for a lot of the legislation surrounding internet privacy because they were one of the first companies to start gathering emails, and I think something akin to like sending non-solicited emails or collecting data from other people. And anyway, I feel like they were ahead of the curve in collecting emails.
Yeah, well,
that's such a
props to
that's
you,
such
Lisa
an
Frank.
early point. Yeah, no hate for Lisa Frank. I'm just like, oh yeah, we have to have laws for some reason.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And yeah,
somebody got paid out in Trapper Keepers, which would be a cool settlement.
Trapper Keeper.
I love a Trapper Keeper. But yes, very excited to go through this record. I was excited to talk to you in general, but particularly pumped to talk. I love getting the insight behind, how this art that we love, that our talented friends create, comes together, and get a little peek behind the synth, so to speak. Maybe it's best to kind of talk just like overall general about the record, and then we get in as we do track by track and really dig in there. But like, as you are talking about the album generally, like, how did you approach this record? Like, how did your approach to this one change compared to others? Were there certain thematic things you wanted to touch on here, or things you wanted to try sonically, or did all that happen kind of organically?
That's a really great question, man. I feel like a lot of times, especially the older that I get, the more busy that I get and the more distracted that I get, it's so rare that I ever get like an entire idea for an album anymore. A lot of times it's just, okay, I've got to put aside 30 minutes here, 45 minutes here to just kind of sit and allow myself to be bored and to just think, or to just try to clear my mind and see what pops up. And I feel like that has been like the struggle over the last few years of just finding that space. Because when you're younger, it's like you don't have as many responsibilities, you don't have as many things going on. It's earlier on in your career, you just have all of this downtime. I don't know how people do it now.
Yeah.
With the world being so crazy.
Yeah.
But I just remember like when I was younger, I felt like I had so much free time. You would just like get ideas, and then you forget that ideas kind of come from nothingness. Ideas only exist in opposition to non-ideas. So the best thing that you can do is to sit and try to clear your head of stuff so that ideas have room to kind of come to you. And I feel like a lot of the songwriting and stuff for this record in particular was just kind of sitting down and being like, well, guess I'm going to be bored, or I'm going to sit here until I feel bored, and then just kind of play around with stuff and see if I have anything worth saying, or something that I don't want to talk to a therapist about. Or I'd rather just tell the public, the general public. So.
Express it via modulation and oscillation.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear kind of like thematically, I feel like these songs do fit together really well. So that's partly why I was asking, like, was there a kind of plan in place for like, this is the theme for this batch of songs, but it sounds like it just kind of came when it came. But I will say, like, as far as the title goes, it's kind of this dichotomy of the gloom and bloom. It feels a little bit like Basic Glitches in that sense, where it was like, the half wolf record, half baby record of the kind of like two halves of different thematic content and sonic sounds. But like this one may be a bit of that again, where there is that gloom and bloom, where there's like two different elements of the record in some ways, but they also like fit together as a cohesive statement a little more this time, where it's like those two things bumping up against each other. I don't know. I think overall, I feel like the vibe is happier sounding and less aggro maybe than Basic Glitches.
Aggro.
Leans into the hyper pop a little more, but also has these like classic pop punk chords from like your older records. So like, what do you think about that idea? Does it feel like you were trying to represent both of those places and how they come together? Like, where did the idea of Gloom and Bloom being the kind of like title to encompass it all come from?
I feel like that's so kind of you. That's a very generous assessment of the album as a whole. I feel like you could take any one song off of that record, and I wanted to just make an entire record that sounded like any one of those songs.
Sure.
I feel like Opaque has a really cool vibe, and I wish I could like focus on that long enough to make an album full of Opaque vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, it just seems like my music tends to reflect how manic my internal workings are as a person, and the fluctuations of myself and my mental health, and this like constant going between these things that are really hard to say, these really big feelings, these big pieces of trauma and pain that have happened in life, and trying to juxtapose those with these really happy sounds.
Yeah.
And I feel like all the 11D stuff just kind of keeps getting more and more. At least for me, it feels like listening as much as I can be an outside ear, hearing it when it's all done. It does feel like it just continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger until maybe at some point it just explodes. It just gets more sad and then more happy. The colors just seem to get more vibrant, more manic, more chaos, I think.
Yeah.
Floating between the two.
And yet it's like there's a real sort of pop banger sheen to a lot of this record. So it's like huge, catchy choruses. They're all pretty much like radio friendly length, these big pop songs. So it's like, I mean, that's not necessarily like unique to this record. I think that's true of a lot of 11D stuff, but particularly on this album, I feel it where it's like packing a punch in terms of the thematic content, which is often like heavy, like you're saying, but also like packing a punch, like just pop hook wise sonically. Like there's so many, it's just wall to wall pop bangers. So it's an interesting thing to sort of have those two things not in tension with each other, but like present with each other. Were there like particular new pieces or synths or, software or things that you were like excited to try with this batch of songs that you hadn't before? Or again, was it just kind of like you sat down to do the song and what came out came out?
This is great. I feel like you are you're an eagle circling the prey of comments on the internet before we started.
Hey, there were some people who had some questions, and we're trying to get those in there.
Big shout out to everybody on the 11D Live Facebook group. You guys are absolutely amazing. Yes. We're actually trying to covertly address everything, all of the questions that were listed in that. I do feel like I have these like particular sets of synthesizers that I keep going back to every time, especially for 11D stuff. Mm-hmm. The Moog Subfatty is I think it's discontinued now, but there's a ton of them out there. If there's anybody listening that's just like wanting to get into it, or you're like, hey, I might want to do something that sounds kind of 11D. I can't imagine why you would want to do that, but if you ever got a bug up your ass about trying it, that I feel like that kind of is the thing. Like you could just flip that synthesizer on and be like, oh, I can do an 11D thing with this. It's super snappy. It's kind of aggressive, small footprint. Small footprint on the desktop. It's amazing. I love it. That's like a go-to. A lot of stuff kind of gets written there. There was this new synthesizer that was put out. It was like a software synth. It's not very expensive. It was called the BA1, I think, by Baby Audio, and it's supposed to be emulating this super old Casio synth, like this battery-powered synth. I don't know what the guys over at Baby Audio are doing. I'm not getting paid to say this, I swear to God. But I do think they have some Harry Potters over there just waving some wands around and doing some cool shit. And I love it. A lot of the synthesizer sounds on this record ended up, I would try to get something really cool with a piece of analog gear or, something that I had to work really hard for. And then all of a sudden I would throw that synth on the track and be like, well, I wonder what this thing, oh, well, fuck it. This one's the one. This is this preset that I just pulled up is the sound. So,
I think everybody anybody listened to our previous episodes with Matt on them, like the Joy Electric episode or the one with Fantasy League, you're gonna prepare yourself for us to try and approximate these different synth sounds that you make.
Oh, that's my favorite.
On these
That's my
records.
favorite.
Mouth sounds coming in.
So many mouth sounds. And
Coming in hot.
Oh, this record has everything. But like you're just washing over, like listening to an album like this in the car versus on your like on vinyl on your stereo versus headphones. I got to advocate for listening to this on a good pair of headphones at least once, just to like pick up on some of these fine synthy background details that I just absolutely love. And that's a question I have. You know, talking about all these different the Moogs and the Baby Audio stuff. Like, I'm just curious at how do you determine like, oh, here's a little glitchy thing or little bleepy bloopy thing that just like is subtle. It's not like in your face. It's not. And how do you, when you're writing, are you just like trying to find ways to add additional textures, or do you have like in the mad science lab of your studio, do you kind of have find ways to like, oh, I know here's a sound I've wanted to try to incorporate. Here's another sound, or like, how does that happen? Because it just seems like it's so much stuff going on, but it all just somehow works together.
That's a great question. Anytime that I think I have an idea of like what I want a sound to be like in my head, especially for an 11D record, and I start going for it, it's almost never the sound that I end up with or that I end up liking. It's a pretty simple process of just throwing everything at a wall, like turning a synth on, moving knobs around until you're like, oh, wow, that was cool. Well, then track that, put that into Pro Tools, and then finding something else. Well, that's kind of a cool percussive sound, or I wonder what would happen if I did this. And then you kind of just start building this palette of sounds that you think are cool. Mm-hmm. I don't know when I'm supposed to stop. I don't know when it actually gets good. All I know is like when it starts to make me feel something, when I can like play back the sounds and all of a sudden like it moves me in some way, or it interests me in some way. And that's the thing that I've always loved about pop music in particular, is that there's three things for you to pay attention to. There's a holy trinity of what's happening. There's normally like drums, vocal, and whatever instrumentation or counter melodies happening there. Everything else is just what your subconscious is doing, right? So it's just kind of ear candy. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of been my rule of thumb. It's like, all right, pick three. Pick three things that you want to have up front that you can mute everything else, and the song still sounds like the song with just those three things happening. And then everything else is just me, my ADD or whatever it is that I need something constantly popping up and giving me Joy Electric feelings in a song.
Up and down the keyboard.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I feel like, I mean, part of why I was asking, like, was it intentional or did you want to hit certain like thematic things with this record, is because it feels like very hook driven. Like almost every song has a central big pop hook that I was just like wondering if that's what you were intentionally trying to craft songs around this time. But maybe that's just like where your feels were at for this record, that these were the kind of songs that came out as you were thinking about, like, as you're saying, what makes a great pop song. It feels very like the most kind of like pop forward production of your records in a certain way, where it's like so many of these songs could and should be on the radio right now. Like they sound like they're ready to go as like singles. And so,
bro, tell them that.
But it's, like, I don't know. I wondered if that was based on like consuming certain kinds of songs or like wanting to try certain things. But it sounds like it was more just like, that's what came out in this particular season as you were dreaming of these ear candy moments for these ones.
I mean, I think you're really astute, and I think kind of what you're saying is it's all of what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Like it's both, where it's like I can have an idea for a melody and I feel like I've got the song down, but now all the production things that need to happen. You know, there's so many times where I feel like I'll land on a musical melody or I'm like, this chorus feels good to me.
Yeah.
If I were standing in a group of people and we were all chanting it together, It feels memorable enough for us to all sing it together around a campfire or at Bible camp or Satan camp, whatever you can go to. Whatever you want to send your kids to. It's 2023. We got options.
The perfect altar call song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See you at the pole.
Yeah, and then just like once I have that melody, it's just an issue of like, well, how do I make that the most impactful that I can? And sometimes that's just like muting the entire chord progression and trying a new chord progression out under it, under the melody.
Yeah.
And so it's all on the table. It's all on the chopping block. I try not to get precious about anything.
Yeah.
I try to just be willing to, have 5 or 6 versions of everything, and there are, and you know what? Now that I'm talking about it, it's a waste of time. I just pick a lane.
I'm pretty. What did we refer? We refer to the butthole cut for Fantasy League.
We never got the butthole cut.
I never got the butthole cut.
What?
We played that one song that I think you referred to like as like the Little Mermaid Under the Sea song.
Yeah, and that was not. It was not the thing. I sounded like a jackass when I said that.
No. We're just saying release the B-sides, release the remixes for this record and all Matt records.
I am working on trying to like dial it back a little bit. My friend Jeremy, who like mixed a bunch of the Jeremy. That's exactly the one. He's done a ton of mixes for like Under Oath and Amberlin and like the super cool art. And he's always like, bro, I just want you to mute everything. I just want you to be like you and a synthesizer and maybe a little drum machine and then throw some reverb on it and like call it a day. And I'm like, that scares the shit out of me to do something that minimal,
something restrained and pulled back.
Yeah, because I don't know how to do that. Like I don't know how to think about things in those terms, and maybe that would be like a good challenge for me. It feels easy for me to do for other people if I'm like, oh well, this is working in your song and this is not, or we could make it work with just these bare bones things. But I think I just love the pageantry of it. It's just really fucking fun.
Everything on this record is like the guitars especially sound so fucking huge.
Yeah.
So big. When those power chords come in on the few of these songs, I'm just like, ooh.
Yep.
Got that
soundbite.
Yeah. No, it hits that like when will the bass drop pop music hook endorphin part of your brain very effectively. You mentioned like your approach to producing as opposed to songwriting, and like that is something I wondered about too, is like you spend a lot of your time doing producing work for other artists. And so has that changed anything for you as you approach these songs as a songwriter? Like in producing other acts, are there certain things that you kind of have honed or worked on with other artists that you're like, I want to try this approach this time? Or like you're saying, is it more you're noticing the contrast between your approach is like try everything, try it 5 times, and then you have a different part of your brain that turns on as a producer?
Most people don't have the patience for that. Most artists don't have the patience or the imagination for that. There's very few people that I work with where we can get in the studio together and I'll be like, hey, no, like I give that rule to everybody where it's like, hey, no wrong answers, because I don't want them to get in their head. I just want them to get into the sandbox with me and just play. I want to see what happens whenever they are not trying to be anything or do anything or create something meaningful. I just want to see what comes out of them that feels meaningful to me and then gravitate towards that. I feel like the thing I've learned most from doing that is like how to be kinder to myself, because when it's just me, I get really neurotic. I get really upset if I can't get something to sound the way that I want it to, or I've worked on something for 4 or 5 hours and I'm just like, this sucks. I don't know if I want to do music anymore. I think I'm giving up everything. I don't ever want to work. I don't ever want to see a synthesizer again. And then I just think back to like all the tons of people that are here that I've literally walked through that scenario with, where I'm like, hey, bud, you're in your head. It's okay. Like, let's go drink some water. Let's go have a snack. Let's break for lunch.
Yeah.
None of what we're doing is important. It's like, it's infinitely important. And also at the same time, it'll all get done with or without us.
Mm-hmm.
We're just showing up for it. So it's okay. So I think like reminding myself to be kind when I can't hit a vocal the way that I want to, or I can't inflect something the way I want, or I can't get a synth sound. I just think about all the people that are sitting here in the studio all the time, and they're like trying this one guitar lick, and we can all hear how it's like not quite there. They're about to have a fucking panic attack if they can't get it in the next 3 takes. And I'm just like, hey, it's okay. It's what we have computers for.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Like we all hear what works and what doesn't. I'm happy to sit here with you until we get it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And sometimes just taking the pressure off is good.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to hear that you have been increasingly able to tell that to yourself. Because I imagine that it's a tricky thing to thread that needle sometimes.
Yeah. Compassion for oneself. I relate to so much of what you say in this arena about the perfectionism and self-criticism and the ADHD and all of that. And it puts quite the mental strain on you, and extending compassion to yourself can be one of the most difficult things to do, but it's definitely something worth practicing. And I'm glad that you're extending compassion to yourself more.
That's very kind of you to say. I don't know where this idea came from. I feel like when I was a kid and people were like, well, I feel like I heard from adults, they would say the first sign of insanity is like talking to yourself, or imagining that you're somebody outside of yourself talking to a different part of yourself, which just seemed like absolute chaos to them. And it was frowned upon. And so that was like one of my only coping mechanisms when I was younger. And I shut it off for so long because I kind of got shamed out of doing it. And now I'm like, no, I can be big brother Matt. I can be older brother Matt. I can be wiser dad Matt to myself. I know what 5-year-old Matt needs to hear right now.
Yep.
And I have enough of the skills to be able to talk. And the crazy thing is, it's all you. When you are you talking to yourself, you're still the same person. It's not like you've got these multiple personalities that you're trying to like deal with. And God bless the people that do have that, because that has to be fucking a hard thing to go through. But it's really helpful to just understand that, like, yeah, everybody has voices in their heads, and being able to acknowledge the power of just not fighting those, but accepting them, being able to talk to them from some of the other voices. It's all you. You're all of it. You're all of it happening at once all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people who don't understand neurodivergence and ways that people self-soothe or process things differently. Some people, a million thoughts happening simultaneously, and sometimes saying things out loud helps focus what I'm because if I don't like stay on a single track, it's just I'm going off somewhere else. So to like remain focused, sometimes I need to say it out loud. Sometimes I need to close my eyes so I can focus enough to like get through a thought. And for people who just like are neurotypical and can just like, oh yeah, I have no problems just sitting and not thinking about anything or whatever. Just like, well, good for you, I guess. But
what a gift.
That's yeah. To shame a kid for using one of your skills to process your feelings or thoughts or whatever, it's tough, man. I'm glad that you're getting back into that and just like realizing that like that wasn't you. That wasn't something wrong.
Yeah, like when you're self-soothing, or you're coming up with your own sort of, hacks to kind of get back on track or center yourself.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you don't know if what you're doing is hurtful or if it's helpful, or you just know it's kind of what's coming out of you when you have adults telling you that like these really healthy behaviors are weird because they feel a certain way about them, or they don't understand them.
Yeah.
There has to be so many people that go through that.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their own version of that, I'm sure, that they're working through.
Yeah.
So.
And who are we to question somebody's methods or experience, their lived experience? That's everybody's brain is unique and challenging and chaos, just like the rest of ours. So just going to defer to them and assume that they know what's best for them.
We have more to think about now as a species than just like, making fire and growing grain.
We know too much.
we know
shouldn't
too much.
know everything that we know. We're trying to think too much stuff at one time.
Oh my God.
No wonder we're all fucking depressed.
We got to get back to the earth, man. We got to get back to the land.
That's right. Get out of the sofa and out into the hunting and gathering.
Nice tie-in.
That's well said. I mean, I think that seems like the ongoing work of Eleventy in some ways is sort of like telling your younger self that it's okay, that you have sort of like made peace with past trauma or things that formed you in ways that are still affecting you, and sort of reclaiming that narrative. That seems to be like a through line in a lot of Eleventy work. I don't know. You think that's fair to say? Yeah.
Oh my God. That's totally fair. Yeah. And to add to that, I wish there was something else I could write about.
No.
It's like all I write about.
I mean, I think people find it valuable. I think people hear that and it resonates for them and are grateful for someone speaking it into the universe. So,
that's kind.
Are there favorite? I mean, we'll obviously go through this with each song, but like, are there particular things you look at with this record that are some of your like favorite things you were able to achieve on the album, sonically or otherwise, that stand out when you kind of like look at this collection as a whole?
I think I'm just always looking for something that kind of hypes me up. Yeah. Like maybe it's a selfish thing, or maybe it's just a way of looking at it, but I really am. I just have like an idea of songs that I want to hear. And it doesn't matter if I'm singing them or if somebody else is singing them or whatever. If I'm producing them for me or producing them for other people, all I know how to do is just try to bring to fruition a song that I want to hear. So I don't understand when artists are like, they make it seem as if it's a burden for them to convey something to the world, to share a piece of themselves with the world. And like they're doing all of us a favor by putting out an album because they hate everything that they do. And it's just such drudgery. And God, why does the world demand this of me, that I give of myself in this way so that you can all be happy and sing my songs and feed my ego? I feel like that's bullshit. And I don't understand that, because why would you do something if you hate it?
Sounds like it's time to hang it up if that's the way they feel.
Like, I love all of these songs. I won't 6 months from now. I mean, 6 months from now, I'll probably feel like, oh, well, I could have done that better. Could have been.
Sure.
But that's part of being a human. That's part of like getting older and growing and advancing, and good for you. Way to go. Never stop. Never stop stopping.
Yeah. You talked about, what songs, what choruses would sound good as a group of people coming together to chant them. And I made a ugh sound when you said that, because all I could imagine was us being at the show, getting the chance to pump our fists, and we were not able to go to the show. Yeah. Future show, we will be there. But could you talk a little bit about that show that happened a few weeks ago in celebration of the new record, and for folks who weren't able to make it out?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to try to make this show really fun, because it's the only one that we were doing this year.
Yeah.
And by the time that we got together a timeline for releasing the album, we were not 6 months out, for being able to book. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, well, if we're going to do a show at all this year, it's going to have to be in South Carolina. It's going to probably have to be at the Radio Room or somewhere here in Asheville. The Radio Room's about to move locations, so this would be the last time that we got to play in that venue. Mm-hmm. We're really good friends with the promoter there. He's been fantastic to us. We've known him for years and years. And we're like, let's just throw a party. Like, let's just have fun and have it be a cool thing to distract them from whatever might go wrong during the show. So we put together like all new visuals. We reprogrammed the entire live set. We threw in a lot of like pop songs and stuff into our transitions, just to kind of make everything feel like a really fun nostalgia bomb. Mm-hmm. Just like, what's the kind of show that we would feel really stoked if we got to go see that? Yeah, like if we went to a show and this happened, or the band did this, I would go home and be like, oh my God, Jessica, like this was the coolest thing. So we're like trying to recreate that feeling. Like what would make us feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing. I just felt like incredibly loved. There, people flew in from Minneapolis. Just kidding. But
Rub it in.
Maine and Florida and some other faraway places. I mean, somebody drove like 16 hours to the show. I mean, it feels like it's all kind of happening without me too at the same time, right? I think that people just kind of gravitate towards the music and it becomes like their thing that they share with their friends.
Sure.
And it's like that connection. So in that way, I just felt really grateful to kind of show up and watch everybody have a good time with each other.
Yeah.
Because it's a tight-knit group of 11D fans, and they're some of the weirdest and kindest people I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing.
We could be the weird ones, right? All right.
They could be.
Yeah. No, it looked super rad from everything we got to see online, and we will be at the
The
next
only thing
one.
that was missing was you guys.
I know. Next time when it's a joint 11D fantasy league show, which is obviously a thing that's going to happen. Speaking it into the universe.
11D Fanta 5 iron.
Yes, exactly. That's a lot of preamble. We got 10 bangers to go through. Should we get down to it?
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, now we got to talk about the album. That's
Yeah.
crazy. Okay.
Hope you're ready.
Hell yeah.
Signed up for the Magpod experience. Buckle
up,
in.
buckaroo.
Yeah.
All right. 1 second.
He's just queuing up ASMR fart sounds. He's like, oh,
Really love the
God.
sound of this one. What
This
are you going
one's-
for with this one?
This one's juicy.
The goddamn camera is freezing every 2 minutes.
Oh, whatever you just did hijacked my entire screen.
Now we got the...
All right.
You want to see Spotify, right? That's what artists love to see.
Yep. Yeah.
God, we
Let me
make
just
so much money from Spotify.
hook up my turntable to
Yeah,
Um,
please.
plug
If
in
you
this vinyl. Got to get those warm vinyl sounds. All right. Opening track of Gloom and Bloom, Side Hug.
So good.
That's string slide.
Juggling the weight of the mandate. Bubble to the top like a phosphate. Trauma still bottled in my chest, X-ray, yeah. Wobble like a VHS on the replay. Struggle with a puzzle when the piece breaks. Looking in the mirror like, damn, that's a deep fake. Try to cut ties with the heartbreak, but I got this thread of every any zone in my bit rate. Used to kind of side hug all my hopes. Used to walk lines like high tight ropes. Now I can't quit championships. Putting out hits on my heroes. Back out of hell like we both. Can't cool down like a heat stroke. Trapping this weight like keto. Hope y'all never got a break like we broke. Fast lane in the campaign. Now I got a lot of champagne in the...
Hell yes.
Hell yes. Okay, we prepared top threes because
Yes,
that's
we
what
did.
we are wont to do
That's
on
what we
our
do
show.
around here.
And this is my number one, baby.
This is
Oh, nice.
This is my number 2.
Okay.
I have a
Number
very
two.
strong,
strong, hard, firm number 1 for this.
Can't wait to hear about how hard it is.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, man. What a great opening song.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I guess I feel like I get the sense of that vibe I was talking about of like just this instantly sort of iconic, catchy pop single hook, like a big hook. Feels like a song that, again, like you would hear on the radio right now. So let's get that going, America. But
Wake up, America.
wake up,
Wake
America.
up, sheeple.
Put Side Hug. Let's get the woke agenda out of here and Side Hug back on the airwaves.
Your other music
go.
is turning the frogs gay.
That's right. Alex Jones knows the deal. But yeah, it almost feels like, I mean, I know Teenage Dirtbag is a song that's important to you and that you've covered it. And I feel like there's some Teenage Dirtbag DNA in here a little bit in terms of that like central pop punk hook that's like kind of a small guitar hook and then that blows up into something much bigger. But it's that central hook is so catchy.
Yeah.
The chorus is so anthemic. It's just undeniable. It's just a huge poppy banger to kick things off. Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, there's just like some of the subtle things. I feel like there are some woes that are very kind of like quiet, like quieter in the background, that are not like super obvious in the chorus. And
Are you giving mixed notes right now?
I'm not giving notes. I'm just saying it's like you talk about the ear candy, the things that you pick up like subconsciously that like are just adding to the textures and like the excitement of the rest of the track. Just the beautiful layers of everything that just gets me pumped. When that first guitar comes in, and then like I don't even know, like it's just like the string bending, like it just sounds so fucking dope, man.
It does. Do you agree, Matt? It sounds dope.
Consider my bread buttered, gentlemen.
Yeah. Before you say what you're going to say, which is probably more important than whatever I'm going to say, I was just like, I feel like this was Basic Glitches is so bleepy bloopy, obviously. And this kind of marries that world with like previous guitar hook driven, more poppy punk stuff that you've done in a way that it felt like a melding of sort of like phases of 11D. I don't know if that tracks for you or not.
I think that's totally fair. I feel like this song is it feels like a whole lot of smoke and mirrors for that kind of stuff, because the ideas, when I listen to that song, I'm like, oh, I'm really happy with how Side Hug came out, and it does get me pumped, but the DNA I feel like is from other stuff. Like I think I might have done like a short video on this where I was like playing around with that riff, like the intro riff, because I was trying to just come up with a cool riff that you could walk up the guitar neck and then down the guitar neck, and it would be kind of fun to play. Then kind of started singing the lyrics to Dragula with that riff.
That's right.
Yeah, and that was like, that felt kind of fun. And then I realized before I wrote that guitar riff that I had just gone on like a nostalgia binge of like old CDs that I have from high school. One of those CDs was from Switchfoot. I'm sure you guys know who Switchfoot is.
Yes.
But their first album, Legend of Chin, had this song on it. I think it was called Chem 6A. And the guitar riff on it has almost the same pattern as the Side Hug riff, because I feel like that one was and then the Side Hug thing is it was just like a little bit prettier of a thing. Definitely did not mean to rip off Switchfoot, and definitely feel like my riff is way cooler than what they did. But I did want to throw out a Side Hug to them. I'm not going to give them full frontal on that, but
no. I mean, it feels it's a classic. It's a classic like pop punk chord progression. Like, I mean, there are different ways to do it, but I feel like that sound is in like a lot of great, pop leaning rock songs.
Yeah, if a punk band released a record, there is a variation of that hook, and this is not
every pop punk band. You're right. It's just there's a palette to paint with.
Yeah, and it's like John and I have talked about a million times on the pod, every punk band has their like We're on the Road song. Like every punk band has like there's some things that kind of come with it, and I don't think of it as like ripping off anything. It just feels like it comes with tradition. It comes with the territory.
Yeah,
like,
you're jumping in the stream.
Yeah, I'm here for it. And I take this for what it's worth, but like I took a poetry class earlier this year, and one of the things that they talked about is that art is theft, and like the best artists steal. And I just think that's part of when people get like all hung up about something sounding like something else or being too similar. It's like if someone is like sampling something and like not crediting the artist, that's one thing. But if something is like reminiscent of another track, who cares? This is like, we're people who tried to like make art and make music, and there's a limit to like, not everybody can make a Tom Waits record and be like banging on a piano in a train yard somewhere. People are working with what they got. It's pop music, it's punk music.
Yes.
And is it getting you in the pit? Are you mixing it up in the pit? Then the job has been done.
Is it getting you in the pit? No, I don't think we should stand on ceremony here. I really love what you had to say. I don't feel like we talk as candidly about this kind of stuff at all. Like all all of my ideas come from somewhere else. Anybody that's like talking about their artistry as if their ideas are novel, you know, or they're the first one that discovered it. Okay, Neil Armstrong, I guess none of us have walked on the moon before.
Have you heard of the E chord? I mean, it's like
obscure.
It's pretty. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of this. Have you heard of drop D? It's pretty sick.
Having said all that, release the Dragula cut, because I would love to hear a mashup of Dragula and Side Hug. That's really something that would work for me.
Yeah, the
Side Hug and Dragula mashup is the butthole cut of Gloom and Bloom.
Yes, and I would like it, please.
Call it Side Hugula.
There you go. It's already done. I feel like Rob would feature on that remix.
Yes.
Name a more iconic duo. Lyrically, we should talk a little bit about the idea of the side hug. Like,
yes.
I think the sense I get from it is like not allowing yourself to fully embrace what you actually wanted to do or pursue, but now you're going for it. Like, this is in keeping with what I was saying about the kid in you maybe wanted one thing when you were growing up, but you had to kind of tamp that down, but sort of reclaiming that now and fully embracing that. I don't know. How does that?
Yeah, no, that totally. When I hear this song, it feels like this, you know, this kid trying to pump himself up, you know, looking at himself in the mirror and being like, "You're going to be so badass during lunch today." Like, you're going to rip a guitar solo on top of the lunch table, and all of a sudden, everybody that hates you in school is, I don't know, going to want to.
The jocks' girlfriends are like walking away from their lunch table. They're like, "What the hell?" They're like, all the cheerleaders are coming up to you.
Yeah, putting you on their shoulders.
Yeah, which isn't as great as it seems, because I did a little bit of cheerleading in high school. It wasn't what Disney would lead you to believe it is.
Interesting.
There's still a lot of ostracizing that happens there.
Sure. Yeah.
Not a lot of High School the Musical, you know, running around and banging on instruments in the kitchen and making music with all your friends and being hot at the same time.
And being hot? Pick a lane.
Right?
We can be interesting or hot.
Yeah.
Choose one.
Too many.
And can we talk about the you're dropping some Greek mythology references in this track, which I find fascinating. I don't know if I don't hear many songs kind of referencing the Minotaur and the labyrinth and the and the string leading back to, you know, getting out of the labyrinth. I think that I thought that was a really cool little metaphor or simile that you had going on there. I thought that was really trying to cut ties, but like there's that string
that's Google Ariadne, not gonna lie. Sorry.
No, I mean
no, that's great. I try to keep like a lot of eclectic reading around the studio for me and for other people that are here. So I have like a lot of comic books, and then I'll have some stuff by Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
And then I'll maybe have like a textbook on design, and then maybe like the Long Halloween, you know, Batman long form comic. So that one feels like something that I read in a Joseph Campbell book. That's like part of the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Like whenever you're doing screenwriting and stuff, the thread of Ariadne is sort of the heart of the protagonist that sort of keeps leading them back onto the right path. And I absolutely love that. I love literature. I love reading textbooks about writing and about how stories are structured and about storytelling. I think it's just absolutely fascinating.
And Blastoise is an ancient Greek myth too, isn't he?
Blastoise. Yeah.
One of my favorite ancient myths. Yes, I love the mix of things always. I feel like a lot of Eleventyseven songs are sort of like Wikipedia entries where I'm like, well, shit, what's this wormhole? I got to go check this thing out for a while. So many great little one-liners in all Matt songs, which we'll have to dive into more.
And also like the line about doing a backstroke down the river, essentially doing a backstroke down the river Styx. I think that's
also good.
That's hilarious. That's great. Like you're just like badass. You're just like fucking I'm just gonna, you know, this river of the underworld. No big deal.
Rules. I also feel like this is a really nice pairing with the album Closer, which we'll get to obviously, but like this idea of finding acceptance, validating your feelings, breaking free of the kind of things that like held you back, those sort of bookending the record, which I really
spoiler alert.
I know. I'm
Jesus.
just saying, I feel like that's what I think of when I think about the idea of Gloom and Bloom, those things together.
John just blowing his load here at the first first song.
Season finale reveal.
Anyway, it's my number one. Good song.
Yes, great song. Do we want to hear? We only got to the. Do you want to hear any more of the? Hell yeah.
Pretty great.
Slaps.
Actually, that does prompt me to say one other thing, which I meant to earlier, which is, you were talking about starting the song on guitar. Like what percentage of the time are you starting the songs on this record on guitar versus synth versus piano? Like what was that ratio like?
It was probably half and half.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, if I get stuck on synths, I'm like, well, I'll try guitar.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Sure.
This is pretty par for the course for us, John. This is the first song.
I know. I'm looking at the clock, and I apologize to Matt and to everyone, but this is what it is. Sorry.
You signed up for this.
This is great. This is what editing's for.
Editing.
Sure. Maybe for your pod.
What is that?
Mascot.
Shot, no sand in the seawall. Flush the toxins till the sunset vacant. Subprimal grace is stuck with the payment. Push the prime time taglines out of phase and found nothing on the ship worth saving. Took all of the shots, straight from the dreadnought. Now I got a new ace back in the sweatshop. Screw loose, but I'm back with the threadlock. Oh, through the crash, patched with my headshot. With the cast, I'm back in my guest spot. Never take the cash, stashed in the mascot. Oh, Spider-Man kiss from a Pisces. Got my constellations aligning.
It's in the top of my favorite lines on the record. So
I mean,
good.
as a Pisces and as a Spider-Man fan, I resonate. It hits me.
Oh my God, are we gonna kiss?
I hope so.
It has to be in the
I'm
rain,
looking at my
bro.
Spider-Man costume.
In the rain, bro.
I always want to descend down into a beautiful embrace.
Oh, so Matt's the Mary Jane in this situation, or are you both? Are you both
I'm
Spider-Man?
a Pisces, and the Spider-Man kiss is coming from the Pisces. I don't know. Explain yourself.
In the Spider-Verse, we can play whatever role we want.
Exactly. Hell
There you
yeah.
go.
Yeah. Wake up, America.
There's already
Spider
porn for this, I'm sure.
in the 11D forums. People throwing
Oh
up
my God.
Matt in the Spider-Man outfit.
All the fanfic that's going to come out of this.
Yeah, please submit those to
magnifiedpod@gmail.com.
Yeah, there you go.
You can send us a voice.
Just slide into your DMs.
That's right. Super fun vibe on this one. Yeah, I think, you have the line in here about the cost to exhume the gloom in your psyche, which feels, again, consistent with the gloom and bloom idea, like thematic kind of tie throughout the rest of the record too, of like the cost that comes with like exhuming that past, like looking at it and sort of moving forward. I don't know. That's what when I hear the song, I think about sort of like dusting yourself off, getting back out there. Does that sit well?
Oh
for you?
yeah, no. It Mascot feels like somebody wrote Side Hug, or at least to me, it feels like Matt wrote Side Hug and then was like, oh fuck yeah, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's get even more hyped. Let's raise the stakes a little bit higher. This one feels like a whole lot of free thought association in terms of like lyrics, and then kind of trying to make it all fit and work. I think that's probably one of my favorite lines too, that everybody made fun of me for when they heard the demos. They were like, Spider-Man kiss. Okay.
Everybody knows what that means. Who doesn't want a Spider-Man kiss?
But I wanted to put that line into a song ever since I saw this like MST3K episode where I think they're watching like McGee and Me or something, or
I hope so.
Right. And one of the mom like leans over and kisses the kid who's like sitting on the couch or whatever, and one of the guys goes, Spider-Man kiss me, Mom. and now like everywhere I go, I try to fit that in to conversation. Yeah. I don't actually want my mom to Spider-Man kiss me now.
I'm very glad it found its way into this record.
Yeah.
This chorus has a great bounce to it, and it is another hype song. But I was curious about, maybe I'm the asshole who doesn't get it, the cash stashed in the mascot. Is that a reference to a thing that I don't understand, or what is I don't like necessarily asking artists to
what does this mean? Explain
specifically a line, what it means, or if it's just like you said, the free association.
That was probably the line that I put the most time into, and it sounds like the dumbest one maybe on the song. But to me, like the idea of not taking cash in the mascot felt like a callback to everything that I learned about the Christian music industry of don't take the money in something where you are being paid to parade and propagate ideas or ideologies or a facade of something that you don't entirely understand what it is. Like, don't be willing to trade that part of yourself for money. There's cash in so many different versions of yourself that you could be, but there's only one that can't be bought, right? And that's probably the most authentic version of yourself.
Dude,
yeah,
love that. I love that.
Yeah. That rules.
That is amazing, and way deeper than me being like, is this about there's always money in the banana stand from Arrested Development?
That's it.
I feel like that's just as valid of an interpretation. I'm happy to high five that.
I'll add that as an alternate on Genius for the meanings of the lyrics.
Please. Yeah, it also, that's sort of, it's interesting that you referenced the Christian music industry, because it's also in keeping.
You said it was interesting.
We're not getting started on that. We could spend too much time on that lane tonight.
Yeah. True.
No, all I could do is think of lines for that show. I'm not going to do that. No, but this idea of like, that people criticize kind of certain Christian spaces as being like Jesus is just your mascot, like it's an easy way to sort of like propagate this positive image of Jesus, but without any of the sort of politics of Jesus or like the ramifications of what it actually means to like live out the gospel. You just want this like Jesus is my mascot to hide behind this stuff. So that feels kind of in keeping with that whole idea too of like, sort of hiding behind this thing in exchange for keeping that cash flow coming and keeping things on the surface level. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, my gut is to take the beginning of this conversation about mascot and turn it into, an expose of Christian nationalism in America and the platforming of political figures and all that stuff. But I'm sure we could save that for another time.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm ready for the Burn It Down 11-7 record.
Oh, man. I don't know. I think we get glimpses at it sometimes. I'm ready.
Ready for some nice things?
Heard you finally found peace, I can rattle that. If you got a dark side, I can settle that. We don't make a policy to cover all the damage that I do when the rose blooms to a battle axe. Plucking out all the light like a ripe cyclone. Never looking for a fight, they just all tag along. Creeping everybody out like a Scars guard. Leave the conflict crispy like a Charizard. Turning everybody secrets into satire. Spread all this damn porn on your captor. Turning all your rainbows into fight scenes. I'm the reason that we can't have nice things.
needed to get that King of the Hill reference in there.
So good, man. So many good references here.
Yeah,
This is a definite.
You got your Pokemon references in there.
I was gonna say second Pokemon reference in 3 songs. So well done. Yeah, it's lots of notable one-liners on this one. Yep. I will say, I don't make friends, just rebel alliances. That's an immediate classic there.
That's a solid line.
It's pretty great. Yeah, this is definitely up there for me as a contender for the top 3. I feel like
starting out with that really like blown out kind of chiptune-y, super distorted crunchiness.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
It rules. I mean, that another just super catchy opening hook. Yeah, I feel like 11D has this mode that we've talked about of this sort of like get hype, like almost like hip hop style songs where it's like, I'm here to fuck your shit up kind of thing.
Yeah.
I love that mode of 11D song.
Yeah. Turning all your rainbows into fight scenes is also outstanding. Yeah. But yeah, like I love Matt getting hype in some of these choruses. This is
pretty great.
I'm here for it.
I mean, this chorus goes so hard. That like the high vocal, but with the like bass heavy element of the chord progression, those two things work really well together. And it's such a memorable chorus. This is the one that I find myself singing around the house the most. Nice things as I'm like doing the laundry or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's and then that bridge builds in such a satisfying way. It's just a banger. I don't know what, talk about your approach to this one, Matt.
While we continue to fillet you for this.
No, I think all of that's really valid and generous to say. I think there was a part of me by the time this was one of the last songs that got written for the record, and I was just so burned out trying to make things cool or like overthinking them, and so I was like, whatever, fuck it. I just want to do something stupid. So it's like when I was listening to the intro of the song, just the wow 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 wow, I'm like, it sounds so stupid.
It's
like
so fun though.
I mean, I do think it's really fun, but I was like, I just wanted to feel like there's nothing about the song that feels, or at least I feel like there's nothing about the song that is trying to take itself very seriously.
Right.
And that feels like it takes the pressure off of me.
Yeah.
And then I think coming up for the lyrics for this one is very much like, like anytime that my wife or I any break or like ever break anything around the house, we don't have wine glasses anymore because we can't be trusted. We only have like mason jars that we drink out of because we break everything else.
Can't have nice things.
Yeah. And anytime anything like that happens, I'm like, well, I'm the reason we can't have nice things. So we just kind of say that to each other. And that for some reason that just kind of came to me and I was like, oh, that'd actually be kind of fun. Just go ahead and be an asshole here in this one.
I love it.
And lean into it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't help if your heart needs a pharmacy because I don't ever miss when I aim for the artery. That's like a straight up hip hop couplet that they can.
Saying. It feels like a hip hop battle song almost.
I know, right? Someone tries to step to you, you're like, all right, let's try it.
That's kind of fun. I think because I don't know if you guys can relate to this at all, but like I feel like I got bullied so much when I was a kid that so much of my mental energy in conversation with people, if I feel threatened or I feel like somebody is stepping out of line or trying to treat me like I'm not an adult, my mind is just racing with like comebacks. That was the only thing that I had. Like I wasn't a physically imposing kid when I was younger. The only thing that I had was like, I have to try to outsmart or outwit or outdo, this situation. I have to think my way out of whatever this situation is. So now it's like, I hate how much time I waste in my mind, like having imaginary conversations where I'm just like poning noobs in conversation. It's so stupid.
Chads and polos.
Yeah.
Yes. But I like catch myself doing it all the time and I'm like, oh, well, actually that's it's not the worst thing because it's very rare that it ever gets acted on, but that's definitely like my toxic trait is like I'm always looking for like the one thing that I know is the most important thing to you, and I will figure out what you value the most.
Yeah. And
if you push me against a wall, the way I lash out is usually making you feel insecure about a thing that you had no idea that you were insecure about.
Right, man. You gotta save it for the 11D diss track. That's the best place for that aggression to be released. I love a good 11D diss track.
Let's go.
I mean, I can relate in the sense that yes, I was also was I bullied in high school? I don't know. I was a short, chubby kid who was very vocal about being into Jesus and was.
Oh, you didn't stand a chance, bud.
No. I did not do myself any favors. On the flip side is I also was terrible at defending myself because I was like, well, I'm just storing up more, things, things for me.
Heavenly crown jewels. Yes.
Yes, because I'm being, persecuted for my faith. And so,
Right.
I was that insufferable kid.
The reason I'm not beating your ass is because of my Lord and Savior.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of kids like you end up going to seminary because they're like,
Well.
I gotta learn.
Well, that's another piece of my news, Matt, that you don't know. I'm actually going back to seminary this January to finish my master's.
Congratulations, bud.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped for
I
you.
started my master's, went to seminary in 2015, 2016, and then I didn't complete it. Now I'm like, you know what? Now's the time. In the year of our Lord 2024 is when
You're doing it. I want you to look up all those motherfuckers on Facebook that gave you a hard time about doing it for Christ.
oh my gosh. No.
Guess who's in seminary now? The joke's on you.
Joke's on you, Gentiles. You
man.
Philistines.
I have thought about you talk about like the mental energy that you spend thinking about like comebacks or things to defend yourself, when in reality everybody else is only thinking about themselves exclusively. Nobody else is thinking about us as much as we're thinking about us. And when I'm thinking like, oh man, this is what I could say to this person, and I'm like, they're probably thinking this about me. It's like no one is thinking about me. Literally, no one has ever thought about me. So, like, we spend so much time. It's so exhausting, and I'm just like, how about like I do something productive rather than spiraling into these ifs and maybes and could be's.
That's so fun. That feels like such high school drama. I'm sitting here thinking about Christ, and he probably doesn't even care about me.
Oh man.
He's probably trying to date some other
spend my
Christian.
lunch break praying for him.
Someday I'll have a podcast and get this all
Intercessing
out.
on this bully's behalf.
Oh boy.
Father God, just tonight, I want to in this place tonight. Father God, just all right.
Should we get in that sofa?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I did want to get to the bridge on Nice Things because it's also fucking
I think I've referenced this before with you guys, but do you remember that SNL sketch with the Lonely Island where it was like, when will the bass drop? When will the bass drop?
Yeah.
And it's this DJ that's like waiting on that bass drop the whole time. And then when it finally does, everybody's heads explode. That's kind of how I feel about the bass drops on this record, where I'm just like, my head's exploding. Anyway, good bridge.
Great bridge. Sofa.
I like watching stupid movies where the hero's a piece of shit.
He used to be a huge piece of shit. He's not anymore. People can change.
And all of my own problems and then never hit submit. All my friends turned into ads for what they're binging in the stream. I keep moving all these pieces like the game ain't playing me. Chased a caffeinated rabbit, just like Alice in that dream. Hyper focused till I barely
is my number 3.
Okay, it's my number 2.
Okay.
Great song.
Great song. My main note on this song that I wrote down is, "You good, bro?"
Mine is, Matt is a depressed king.
Or Queen.
Yeah. Yes. I texted you about this song, and I'm like, the line "way down on the sofa where the change goes to die" is just
Such a good line.
Such a good line, so relatable, such good wordplay. But for all the depressed kings, queens, and non-binary folks out there,
That's right.
the sofa is just like, sometimes it feels like the fucking coffin sometimes, man. So I'm not trying to read into your experience. I'm just interpreting it for myself and how I read it and how I interpret it and how it lands for me. But like, yeah, I felt like this was one of those songs I wanted to talk about a little. And
I mean, you're talking to a couple depressed kings here, so it may hit for us a little harder than it does for some folks. But
I feel like this song kind of takes the turn into sort of the into the self-doubt, the questioning your own value as an artist, and I feel like it's kind of what we were talking about earlier when you're like wanting to throw your synths away and just call it quits. But is this something that you're willing to kind of
where were you at
where were you at when you were
putting this
writing
one together?
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I'm having a good time just kind of hearing you sort of relate to it in your own way.
Yeah.
It makes me feel really happy and seen and cared for that I have friends that would like hear a song like that and would check in on me. So I really appreciate that.
I mean, yeah, when I heard the
Very
line for the
kind.
first time, does nobody notice how I'm hopelessly sofaed inside? I'm just like, oh no. Is our boy Matt okay? Is there, like, that's the sort of thing that I'm like, somebody might hear the song and it's like, oh yeah, I relate, but I'm like, I'm thinking about my buddy Matt and hoping he's doing all right, and hoping he knows that how much we love him and how much. That's why I was like, I sent that text. I'm like, dude, you write so many fucking bangers and nonstop bangers, wall to wall, tracks 1 through 10 slap, and just I don't know. Is it weird to say I'm proud of you? But
No, I very much appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's probably a lot of like channeling some depression into that. But I feel like the placement of this on the album is like, okay, the album sort of reads like my year normally plays out, right? Where like you kind of start out with this like you start out with a lot of energy, with a Monster energy drink. You get a lot of taurine, a lot of Red Bull, and you're just so pumped, and we're going to hang out with our friends, and we're like doing our thing, and then we get even more pumped, and then like all of a sudden, around about halfway through the year, it's like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? You just sort of question all these things. I don't know. I felt like I wasn't just telling my story with that one. I feel like it was a lot of people around me that were also sort of feeling that way. And honest to God, I don't know if I'm the same person after all things COVID. Like not to say like, well, it was COVID and COVID did it. No, I just think I'm starting to finally get an understanding of like that we as a society, everything from my friend group to my community to my county to the state to, like all of us are kind of going through something unprecedented for our generation, and none of us are entirely sure what to even call it. And like what you were saying earlier, we have way too much information. We know about way too many mass shootings. We know about way too many problems. We have more information at our disposal than we could ever make a dent in. The only thing that we can do really that's effective at all points is work on ourselves, right? Like when all else fails, when we're not sure, I don't know, the right thing to advocate for, if we can figure out how to advocate for ourselves and get ourselves clear, then we're able to advocate for others out of that clarity. And that's something that I feel like I've been learning through all of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of has those moments. Gosh, probably around mid-December, I'm going to feel sofaed again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the same thought about sort of the sequencing of this, that like it starts out so hype, and I love that this track follows Nice Things, which, as we were saying, was kind of like this like pump yourself up kind of diss track style song, to immediately go into a song that grapples fairly vulnerably with like depressive feelings. I really like that kind of like flow of this vibe into the next vibe. Now it happens to be like an absolute banger that deals with depression, so it's not like the energy goes way down. But I appreciate that sort of like juxtaposition, and it feels very COVID-y too. Like that was how I felt. Was like I felt very Sofa'd throughout all of those couple of years.
Yeah.
So I immediately thought of that time in my life. I feel like, yeah, like you're saying, we all kind of got, most of us anyway, got Sofa'd to some extent at some point in those couple of years, and we're sort of grappling still with what that did to us.
Yeah.
But,
and as somebody who's currently unemployed, it's also very much where I'm spending arguably way too much of my day, and trying to give a shit about anything. So that's also kind of where it hit too for me. It's like God, like do I like, I just like it, to me, like this is like, you know what, never mind. It's just I was like let me talk about late stage capitalism. No, it's just, you know, fuck it.
Much like we could go on a mascot side tangent about Christian nationalism. We could talk about Sofa and late stage capitalism, but
anyway,
that's for the philosophy pod we'll do to talk through this record again.
Philosophified pod.
There you go.
There it is.
But yeah, I love how it's like, this is another one that's like instant classic, catchy hook to me. That feels like a very Weezer riff to me, the chord progression of that one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's so big and catchy, and another just huge chorus. And that combo to me is just like, I mean, that's kind of catnip as far as like pop rock, put it in your veins kind of sound. And we already mentioned it, but what a great opening line. I mean, to have things start out with, I like watching stupid movies where their hero's a piece of shit. I just start laughing every time I listen to it.
That was, I mean, I can't help but think of, I think you should leave every single time. I was a piece of shit though.
I was.
You would.
I think I'm ready to hold the baby
back then.
I'm worried that Matt thinks that people can't change. Every time we talk to you or Scott about this, I just think about all the fans who want to hear like detailed like the inside the songwriter's process for 11D and Fantasy League, and they come and listen to our podcast and are like, what are they talking about?
Yeah, and you know what? You can't have everything that you want. This makes me so happy.
As far as this sofa, was it a white sofa? Like white sofa, slicked back hair.
You think this is floppy steaks, slick back sofa?
Itty bitty jeans. It was itty bitty jean sofa.
Oh man. Okay.
Anyway,
but yeah, as this is another big classic hook, as you were talking about. Was this one that came out on guitar first, or what was the inception of this one for you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that one started out on guitar. I think I didn't have an idea for the song, and I remembered this movie that I had seen like, oh my God, probably 15 years ago at this point. It's like still one of my favorite movies of all time, super, super low budget, and it's got Danny McBride in it. And it's called The Fist Way.
Yeah.
I think they filmed that not too far away from here in like Concord, North Carolina. It was like one of his first things that he got funding for, him and Jody Hill. And that movie feels magical to me because it like encapsulated so much of like the Southern experience growing up. In towns like that, and I just thought it was awesome. So that was just kind of the impetus for it, and the movie itself is like kind of depressing and ends up sort of depressing. Anyway, yeah, that was the thing. We don't have to keep talking about that because the album only gets more depressing after that.
But it is like, yeah, again, that almost like dichotomy of pairing like this huge poppy hook with like dealing with some tough stuff. I feel like that's a through line through the record, and
makes the medicine go down a little bit easier.
It's true. It's such a banger. I love this song a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another thing that people were curious about, throwing out those questions, is sort of like, how often do lyrics come before music for you? And I know we've talked about that in a couple of instances before, but were there cases on this record where you had something you wanted to say first and foremost, and that you built the song around that?
A lot of times it'll just be like what we're talking about with Mascot, where it's kind of just like free flowing thoughts, or sometimes I'll just sit down and write what I want the song to be about, or what I think is a compelling idea for a song, and then maybe turn that into a story and yada. But a lot of times like the songs make more sense before they get recorded, because I just kind of get bored with like a regular narrative of something. If I can fit a Bruce Willis reference into something and some Pokemon or something, I would much rather do that, because that's the kind of song that I would want to hear.
Yeah,
like that.
I affirm that choice.
Hope Bruce Willis is doing okay.
Yeah, for real.
No, what else is
genres all over the place here.
Sorry. I know what else is a great song. Baby Teeth.
I can live with broken bones, some stones that I refuse to throw. Maybe I've got better reasons than my Bible tells me so, to let it go. Please don't let me leave here with this heartache left unmasked. There's no soul I won't disown for all my friends and family back. But you know that you know. And it feels like God himself don't care to remember that a star just fell to us somewhere
in America. I love that bass.
This is my number one.
Okay.
Number one with a bullet. This song fucking rules from the second one. Just like that ring ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
The fuzzy bass.
It's great.
The guitars are so huge. And like going from the sort of like loud quiet and then to a huge chorus, that's the formula for getting a number one out of me, because it is just so good. It's so satisfying. And then you tack on some post deconstruction struggles and post Christian trauma, and I'm just like, I'm here for it.
Yeah, those are interesting thoughts. I think that
I said it was interesting.
I thought it was interesting. I'm gonna rip the fucking head off. This song to me, I'm not sure that I'm like happy with how it turned out. It doesn't matter. It's done. It's over. It's like it turned into what it turned into. I think like in hindsight, this song kind of started out as a ballad. I got really bored with it, or it felt like I was having a hard time kind of getting through it, like singing it that way, because it just felt really fucking sad.
Yeah.
And it just really bummed me out. Like still thinking about this song. This is one of those things where you feel like you need to say it, but it's like having a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh fuck, I'm glad that's over.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't have to have that conversation again. Yeah, there was that. So I think the production that ended up happening on it, there was probably 4 or 5 versions of this that I went through before I was like, oh, this one feels like it fits on the record a little bit more. But to me, it does feel like there's a disconnect between how heavy what's being said is and like the music just kind of being like an electro candy store of beep boops and whizzes and whirs and all that stuff.
But I think that's what this record is to me. That dichotomy of those two things sort of intentioned together. I don't know. I really like that about it. That like big, huge soaring chorus, ear candy, but very tough things being expressed.
I wanted sad music and sad lyrics. I would go throw on like a Phoebe Bridgers record, right. But like if I want pop bangers with my sad lyrics, throw on an 11 record.
I do. It does make me want to hear those other versions, though. Again, if there's a ballad
version of Baby Teeth
version, I would be interested to hear. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a deconstruction anthem in my mind.
Yeah.
And at least as the way that I see it, kind of like mourning and processing the kind of ramifications of deconstruction. You know, a couple of these lines are pretty devastating. Like, there's no soul I won't disown for my friends and family back. Were you only proud of me when I could be as numb as you? Like, those feel very deep and hard hitting. And I could see, you know, if you're presenting them a certain way, like you're saying, that it maybe just be like too much. I'm curious about, I remember at one point, I think as you were making the record, you kind of asked folks, what are some of your favorite sort of like deconstruction songs? Was this one of the songs you were working on when you were thinking about that question, or was that just kind of in the mix for you?
I think by the time that we started putting together that playlist, the album had been done for a little while.
Okay, got it.
But I always love hearing people's deconstruction songs because they feel really cathartic to me. Even some of them that I can't relate to, it makes me feel even more seen sometimes, because I'm like, oh, there's this whole spectrum of experience that people have had, and they were led into it and out of it in such crazy ways that look a lot different than mine. I feel like the idea for this song kind of started out with this narrative that I had in my head of, like, you know, when you grow up in Christianity, you have the Christ narrative drilled into you from childhood of, like, Christ comes to earth, everything's like super fucked up. It's also kind of his fault. He knows everything and does everything and is in control of everything. So he creates this world. He gives everybody free will, but then all of a sudden, like, he gets really upset with them. He destroys the world several times. And then all of a sudden he comes to, like, redeem us for our sins, but he also made us to have the capacity for sinfulness. And it's such a head fucking thing to go through. And I think going through the idea of that story, I just, like, had this thought come to me one day where I was like, if I rewrote the Bible or I were making the Bible into a movie, I feel like the more compelling narrative is, what if the only way to ensure that somebody gets into heaven is you giving up your spot? And for all of us to get there, we all have to decide that we're going to give up our spot for the next person. And maybe the idea of the Christ figure is that he's the last one standing. He's the one that takes it all in that way. That narrative felt so much more compelling to me in that, because I do feel like that kind of personal sacrifice is the way into what I've found to be, like, more spiritually enlightening ideas that I don't know, feel more magnanimous or kind or accommodating to our species. And so just, I don't know, I guess going back and replaying that story in my head, that narrative makes me feel cared for and resonated with me as being, I don't know, something a little more applicable to me. Not trying to, like, be like, oh, Matt can rewrite the Bible, and he, you know, and it's not about that. It was just this kind of weird thought experiment that I had, and I don't know, it really left an impact on me.
Yeah,
and it kind of got me thinking about, you know, these experiences that I had growing up with my parents and authority figures and all that stuff, which I'm sure you guys had too. So many people in our generation, like, it's a hallmark of our ring of fire to walk through.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think that's really powerfully said. I don't know if I've heard it articulated in quite that way before. And yeah, the kind of narrative that was being propagated when we were growing up, I think, is one that's very self-focused and about my personal salvation.
Yeah.
And so to have what you're talking about be, like, fundamentally centered in other people and the idea of a Christ being naturally about others, like, that fits really well for me. And that lines up well with kind of the themes of the song, like you're saying.
Or maybe if we interpreted heaven as not an otherworldly sort of existence, but that heaven could be now.
Yeah.
You know, just one man's opinion that is a different and maybe perhaps better interpretation.
This guy rewriting the Bible over here?
that heaven wasn't supposed to be celestial bullshit with angels and clouds and whatever, but, like, the way we treat each other and the way we care for each other and the earth we could exist in a heaven now.
Yeah.
But whoops, we're all about making sure everybody knows they're going to hell and that they are sinners. They need to say a specific phrase, and that's all that matters, rather than telling somebody that they matter and you care about them and that they're valuable.
I agree, but not everyone's going to hell. Some people are going to seminary.
That's true.
Right.
To some people, that might sound like hell.
Or seminary, as I'm going to call it.
Heyo.
I also just
You're
think
welcome.
baby teeth is a great metaphor for all of this. The idea of like, as a metaphor for growing up and sort of like walking away from what you were taught, maturing in that way. And the idea of like trying to live out, you're talking about turning the other cheek and losing your baby teeth in the process, like living out what you thought it meant to live Christ-like was actually what grew you out of that tradition.
Yeah.
That's how I thought about it anyway, as I was listening to it. And I feel like, baby teeth captures that concept really well.
Wait, I'm not supposed to just constantly welcome abuse?
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah. No, I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah, because I do feel like a lot of that shit was abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
A song about abuse, but with a chorus that's such a hands in the air, head nodder. Like, again, good shit.
Yeah.
All right, we're halfway through the record, folks.
Yes.
We're going to do this. We're going to do this.
Eleventy Life is a production of Rock Candy Recordings and Rock Candy Media. Every time you subscribe to Eleventy